All right. James Merrill.
What's up, Mark?
Welcome to the Passion Project. Thank you so much for coming down here today. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I know you're a busy man.
Yeah, sure. We all are. It's okay, though.
Yeah. Well, people are going to find out how come you have a lot going on.
Yeah.
And what's really cool, and I'll get to the intro in a second, but what was really neat for me, like you've been on my list. I first learned of you, saw you at the Laguna Beach Film Festival, the Coast Summit, which is a sustainability, recycling type of focus, full day event put on by New Earth Project, which is Atlantic Packaging. They do amazing work. Yeah. And you were on a panel last year.
Yeah.
I think they call it the Modern Alchemy panel.
Right.
A bunch of four innovators doing really incredible things for the environment, innovation, sustainability on an international level.
Yeah.
Rad. And you were on that panel. And the four of you really captivated me last year. And then I was back there this year.
Yeah.
And they brought you guys back.
Yeah.
And then by chance, I was sitting next to a couple folks that work with you. They're videoing you while you're talking. And I was like, oh, you must know James.
Yeah.
And then we met through that, which was really cool because I'm just stoked based on what you're doing for the world.
Yeah.
It's really neat. And then as I've gone down the James Merrill, the rabbit hole learning about you in prep for this, your story's pretty rad. Like there's way more to it. And I would think like what's interesting, you're two, and I'll start in the intro. Your two companies that you are founder and CEO of, Stoked Plastics and Opolis Optics. And so I think about what you're doing. Not only are you in the optics space, which is pretty competitive, you're also on this innovation side where you're creating the materials to make this special product, these super high performance, durable brands. Or durable goods out of the material you make. So all right, you got two different businesses you're doing.
Yeah.
In a competitive space, in Southern, like you've taken on a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and it makes me go, okay, what motivates and inspires someone to do that?
Yeah.
And then what's the backstory? And so what's really interesting as we're talking about, you're in these high performance, beautiful optics with Opolis.
Yeah.
We're sitting in Costa Mesa right now, which is arguably the heart of the surf industry, the fashion, a lot of fashion. You've got LA, New York, and this part of Orange County. It's just been the history of it. So there's a lot of the brands that we all know that are domiciled right here.
And optics companies as well, right?
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time. Yeah. And so I was like, all right, this guy's in deep. Like it's a big ask. And I'm really curious to find out about not just what brought you here, but like what it's been like, because startups are tough. Yeah. I always say startups are not dissimilar from nonprofits. Like you're always asking for money, which is a tough thing because you're like, I have an idea and I want to do good.
Right.
You more like a nonprofit because of what you're trying to do from the sustainability, recycling, materials. It's really amazing, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to kind of talk story about not only what brought you to this place, but how it's going and where it can go and kind of the goals and objectives of this vision that you've put together.
Sure.
So super, super neat. And the next part is, and then we'll get, I promise I'll let you talk.
No,
today.
You're good. I'm here for the ride, Mark.
The backstory with a lot of the people that are in the industries that are around us, the surf industry and optics and everything else, a lot of people in the industry and outdoor retailing, et cetera, have kind of grown up through it.
Yeah.
They started working at a surf shop like I did, and then they get into the brands as a rep, and then maybe they'll even branch out and become a partner or a designer or work for one of the brands or start a brand. It's usually really endemic, right?
Yeah.
That's not you.
No.
You have a very different path, an incredible one that takes you all over the world, puts you in super harrowing conditions, and yet you still come out and go, I want to do this thing for the betterment of the good while making a premium brand. Like, it's an amazing kind of cacophony of things that you've put together. So we're going to unpack all of that today. But like, again, as I went down the rabbit hole, I was like, damn, this guy's got a lot going on.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate these questions, Mark. And it's so nice to meet you, man.
Yeah, likewise.
And it was great. It was just good timing. You were sitting next to Casey and Carol at the
Casey and Carol. That was
Summit.
Okay,
But yeah, I think first of all, ignorance is bliss when it comes to this type of thing, right? I started the materials company really before the Opolis thing. And it happened in such a way where, I had this plastic, this Stoked plastic pellet
What did you call it?
We call it the Stoked plastic pellet.
Oh, the Stoked plastic.
And so that basically is just, we reinvented the rPET pellet, a water bottle based
So
pellet.
rPET is what?
Recycled polyethylene.
Okay.
And that's essentially a recycled water bottle that you'd find in the ocean or landfill, or in your blue redemption bin that you put on the side of the road. So we had created this concept of basically building a pellet that has 10 times more recycled content than any other pellet out there in the industry. And we developed it about 4 or 5 years ago. And, being new to the industry of materials and plastic, it was very difficult for me to, essentially get my foot in the door with a lot of these big brands and companies. And so I said, okay, well, if I can't get really anyone to buy into the concept or test the material, let's do it ourselves and create an eyewear brand or a proof of concept that would prove out the technology, right? So that, we could essentially show the marketplace that A, people wanted it, B, it worked, and, C, that this was a new way of manufacturing plastic goods. And so we introduced Opolis optics within 4 or 5 years ago. And I introduced it in the outdoor retailer, OR, right?
Yeah.
And we first started with sunglasses, and people asked me, well, why sunglasses? Well, I was like, well, sunglasses are such a beautiful product to tell a story about durability, coolness, and just having a cool plastic thing. And so we launched the sunglasses made out of recycled content, or recycled PET or Stoked plastic. And then we figured out how to turn the rPET or the plastic into a thread as well. So not only were we selling the sunglasses that were made from the Stoked plastic pellet, but the cases, the fabric that they were coming in. And so I was like, okay, so we can do hard and soft goods. And so I started looking at the ski and snowboard goggle, right? Because ski and snowboard goggles require hard and soft goods as well. So I was like, this would be a really cool concept. I don't think I've ever seen a fully sustainable ski and snowboard goggle on the mountain. And so we launched the ski and snowboard goggle, and that's really when we found our stride in terms of like how we can become a lot different in the industry and how to show the market that this plastic is really revolutionary. And so
hold on, let me jump in there, because ironically, it's really interesting you say that, because that is how I found out about you before I saw you on stage.
Yeah.
You were in my feed or something, but it was the goggles. It wasn't the
sunglasses.
Correct.
Yeah.
Did you guys win an award or something for that?
We did. We won an Outdoor Innovation Award, Outdoor Retailer Innovation Award, and we beat out some of the biggest eyewear brands in the world in innovation and sustainability, because for each goggle that we were making, it's about 10 water bottles, and that includes the strap, the frame, the cases it comes in. So it's like a complete package, but you're removing 10 water bottles and putting it back into a product that's going to serve as a pretty cool piece of gear for you on the mountain. And so we launched that at the Outdoor Retailer, and we got picked up by REI, we got picked up by LL Bean, Paragon Sports. And so this proof of concept actually started to gain legs and momentum. And I was like, okay, so this is our moment, right? This is where I really focused on the materials now that we're getting in front of the bigger brands that could potentially buy into what we're doing. But then, as you know, Mark, like during the startup phase of a company, resources are very limited. And so here we had this company that was bringing in revenue to support the overall mission and production of the Stoked plastic concept. I was like, okay, this is an interesting moment for us. Do we shut down the Opolis thing and just focus on Stoked plastics now that we have momentum and some revenue? Or do we continue to run both companies as two separate companies, but supporting each other in both, creating awareness, and leveraging the momentum.
The momentum. Right?
Yeah. So I was like, you know what?
Double down.
But let's just double down. Let's run two startups at the same time. And at this point, I was running it by myself.
Wow.
right? And again, like I said, ignorance is bliss, because you figure you can do everything on your own for a long time, and it turns out I couldn't, right? So I ended up bringing in Casey Wallace, our COO, and then our Chief Scientist Officer Ashish Lamba, who's been amazing in creating the blend for us. So it's been the three of us and our creative director Carol Aguelo in developing these companies, and then visualizing and materializing into it. But we wouldn't have the Stoked plastic momentum without the Opolis thing.
Listen,
right?
I think that you said it, and that's what I was going to ask you, like proof of concept.
Yeah.
Like, we have this thing, but we got to show what can be done with it that's
right.
different from what's already out there, that
That's
it
right.
performs, that it works great, it looks really good,
Yeah.
and it has this real story of
Right.
helping, you're pulling used resources out of the environment instead of making virgin stuff.
That's right.
Rad.
Yeah,
It's so
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Okay, listen, that was a great high-level overview of where you are. I want to go in the Wayback Machine a little bit if I can, because again, as we said, you didn't start
No.
in the surf industry or
No.
the outdoor or snow, but so let's go to the Wayback Machine. So you also didn't grow up here.
No.
Let's start there.
Yeah.
So where'd you grow up? What was it like? Because
Yeah.
I'm sure it's going to lead us to who you are today and how come you're doing this.
Sure. Yeah. So originally, I grew up in Kennebunkport, Maine. On the other
Hold on.
side.
That's the Kennedys, right?
No, that's
Or is it
that's
the
the
Bushes?
Bushes. Yeah, that's
Got
the
it.
Bushes.
Your neighbors down the street?
Yeah, the neighbors down the street. So, grew up on the coast, just the Atlantic. It's very similar to growing up here, except the water was a lot colder, right?
Yeah.
But grew up surfing and snowboarding. Just like in California, in Southern California, we had access to the beach and mountains. And so, growing up in Maine, going on camping trips with my dad and skiing with my family and being in the ocean and boating and sailing, you develop this amazing connection with the environment and the wilderness in general. And that's really where I found my happy place, right? It was through sport, and then it was through the environment. And so, my passion for the environment and the advocacy for it really started at an early age, because that's really where I learned and discovered who I was. It was through participating and being in nature.
Was the family into that? Was it a full family thing?
Yeah, big time. And so our big vacations or our things to do was to go boating. It was to go to the mountains. It was to be on the beach. That is where we were most unified and at our happiest. So that's really kind of where that it started. But fast forwarding into what I was doing about 8 years ago, I was a U.S. government contractor.
Okay, but hold on.
Yeah.
We're going to talk all about that.
Sure. Yeah.
But when you were in school or growing up, did you have is that a vision that you had? I want to go do this international thing. Did you know where you're going? I'm curious how you ended up working in that field, which you'll talk about in a second.
Yeah, no, I actually wanted to be a professional soccer player.
Is that right? Is that your primary sport?
That was my primary sport. I was on the Olympic development team until I was U18, traveled all over the world internationally, played a little bit in Australia for a semi-pro league over there. That's really where I thought I was supposed to be, right? Was in that world. And unfortunately or fortunately, I got severely hurt playing over in Australia, and had to come back to the United States, get some surgeries, and really never was the same. And at this point, I'm like 23 years old, right?
So you're playing post high school.
Yeah.
Collegiate, or did you go straight into the semi-pro?
So I played collegiately at St. Lawrence University, a small D3 school upstate New York. But we were always nationally ranked. We always made it deep into the tournaments. And we had a lot of guys from our team that went on professionally. We were a small school, but we had incredible talent, right? And it was an incredibly competitive team. So, going from that and then playing in Australia and internationally a bit, and then doing some combines for some teams here in the U.S., I played my hand at it. It went as well as it could have, given the injuries that I sustained. But then afterwards, I moved to Washington, D.C. because at this point, Mark, it was during 2009, 2010, when we were kind of having the economic turmoil.
Understatement, right?
Big time, right? And so I thought to myself, well, it's probably impossible to find a job right now, especially given, I was a religion major, a minor in education. Right?
Hold on.
Yeah.
So you were a religion major and a minor in
education.
Yeah.
And then
hold on.
Yeah.
That's really, what was the thought of, if you've got a religion major, you're thinking, I might go into that world in some, what were you thinking? I'm just super curious.
Yeah, so
because you look like a priest.
Yeah, thanks.
If anybody can see you, he does not look like a priest.
Yeah. So I went to Chevers High School, which is a Jesuit, Catholic Jesuit school in Portland, Maine. And kind of fell in love with the Jesuit order. The Jesuit order is all about service and education, and then they just use the gospel as kind of their jump off point. But really ended up falling in love with just that type of curriculum. And at some point, I did think I wanted to become a priest. There was a part of me and a part of my story that wanted that, but ended up not pursuing that. But I really liked the idea of understanding religion because, outside of the U.S., if you understand a person's religion, you understand their value and their core of who they are, because it really dictates their everyday lives, right? So there was a kind of psychology in it, where I was interested in religion because it connected me to people and to better understand who they are and what they cared about. So I did really appreciate that aspect.
And it seems religion. That's super rad. Because again, when we get further on, I think it sounds like a lot of the tenets of what you mentioned, service, and again, then it's going to be community and everything else.
Right.
That hasn't changed for you. Just took a different route to get there,
exactly,
right?
Exactly.
Rad.
Yeah.
Is that what led you? So you've got these degrees. You graduate. You're playing ball, so you're focused on that.
Yep.
That kind of changes based on the injuries. You go to DC. What happens there?
Yeah, so I started couch surfing with friends, trying to find jobs. And I ended up meeting a friend. Her father was the CFO of a big government contractor called DAI. And their primary client was the State Department, or USAID. And
often known as USAID these days, right?
Yes, exactly. And so this was a world that I hadn't even thought about or even known about, was international development and what that could mean. Because for me, working in a traditional 9-to-5 or in a cubicle felt very claustrophobic for me.
I don't recommend that for anybody.
Yeah, and so I was trying to think outside the box of how I could, be a professional person and but still have that adventure, right? Because after coming back and realizing I couldn't play soccer professionally anymore, I kind of went through an identity crisis, and it was a pretty low point in my life. And so when I was introduced to the idea of international development, it really kind of excited me, because I was like, okay, there's an opportunity to travel the world, support people, be in these really gnarly places, and make a decent living at it. And so I ended up actually starting in the finance department at this company. DAI. Yeah. And I'm not a numbers guy, and we've talked about this a little bit, Mark, and neither are you. And
Understatement also.
And as a religion major and a minor in education and a soccer player, this is not where I thrived. But at the time, his name is Kevin, and the CFO, and he's like, look, come in. This will give you a taste of what the company's all about. If you can understand the number side of the business, you really get to know the entire business itself anyway. So I spent 2 years, understanding that role and trying to get better at math and Excel.
But just in DC.
In DC.
So you were in the mainland.
Yeah.
The missing link that I think I heard here is travel. You were doing all the travel for soccer.
Yeah.
You're living in Australia.
Yeah.
Does travel, did did have a piece of your heart
Yeah,
already?
100%. And there was, first I understood that, because I had no former training in international development or working for U.S. government contracting, I knew that I had to learn and kind of pay my dues, literally, right? So learning the business, learning how to operate within the U.S. government methodology was something that I had to understand. And then until there was this opportunity for me to move to Bangladesh.
Wow.
So there was an agriculture value chain project there. It was a $160 million project. Agricultural value chain project, which meant that our company was hired by the State Department to manage a project that helped farmers get their produce to larger economies. So instead of just their farms, they're getting it into markets that basically can scale and grow, right?
Got it. This wasn't USAID, but it's doing similar work to what USAID does, right?
So DAI was a contractor for USAID. And so USAID hired us to basically implement this project. And they were asking for someone to move to Bangladesh for 2 years. And I'm not sure if you're not familiar with Bangladesh, Mark. It's kind of a gnarly place, right? It's it's Muslim. It's massive. It's overly populated. It's just still very much a developing country. And so there wasn't a lot of people in the company that A, were interested, or B, could leave their friends and family for that long. But at this point, I was 25 years old. I put my hand up. I was like, if I'm going to learn the business, if I want to start, getting involved internationally at this type of stage, this is a sacrifice. This is an opportunity I can't say no to. So they ended up selecting me, and I moved to Bangladesh.
Did you see it as a sacrifice or as an opportunity? Like, were you like, this is kind of rad but gnarly, or I don't know what I'm getting myself into?
I think a sacrifice from just being away from the reality that I knew. Right.
Not a lot of surf in Bangladesh?
No, there's not a lot of surf in Bangladesh. There's a lot of sweating in Bangladesh.
I can imagine.
But so I ended up moving to Dhaka. It's the capital city in Bangladesh, and I lived there for 2 years. But then that's really where I really felt my stride. I was like, wow, this is me. Like I'm in the dirt. I'm sweating. I'm with these people in the field. We're putting up projects. I'm working with farmers. I'm like, we're doing this.
Is that a little bit back to the Jesuit?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of all wrapped back up into that. And when I was at St. Lawrence University as a religion major, I studied the Quran. And so I understood the values and the foundation of what the Quran meant to these people in Bangladesh. Even though I couldn't speak Bangla, I understood where their heartbeat, was at. And so that was a really important connection, because I had no idea what I was going to do with my religion major. But the fact that I had this foundation of Islam and then connecting with these people helped me incredibly so. And I knew a little bit of Arabic because of studying the Quran. So even though I couldn't speak Bangla, this was a whole different part of the world that I never anticipated in interacting with. I thrived in it. And it was an incredibly hard, what they call just a field assignment. And Mark, I came into this being like, I'm going to change the world, man. This is it. This is how it's going to happen to me. And by the end of it, I became a little cynical. I was like, wow, the world is like really messed up.
You can use the F word.
Yeah,
sure
it's really fucked up, right? Like these people are living in absolute poverty. There's so much corruption. There's so much violence. There's just these vulnerable communities. It's just something that I had never experienced in my life. You hear about it, but actually experiencing it and participating in it, it was just kind of this like crazy kind of thing to experience as a young man, right? Like I was 25, 24, 25. And so that was really what changed my life, that long-term assignment. And then DAI won a big contract in Pakistan, and what they called it a governance project. And so what governance means is that under that umbrella of governance was counter-violence extremism, so CVE. And so that's just a fancy word of saying counterterrorism things. And so they said, James, you're in the region. We just won this big contract in Pakistan. We want you to advance the team, go to the field, set up offices, hire people, start this program. And because this is where we need to be for the next 4 years.
You're a long way from Kennebunkport.
Long way from Kennebunkport.
Wow.
And so, I was in Pakistan, on the border of Pakistan and Afghanistan for 4 years. 6 months in, 2 months off. So we go in for 6 months, and then we'd have rest and recuperation for 2 months, and then I'm back in. And it was a gnarly experience, and one of the scariest things I think I've been involved in. But I was stoked. I was like, this is the adrenaline part of me that I want to get into. But I had no formal military training, no arms training. So the fact that we were going in as a counterterrorism project, working directly with both the Pakistan government and the U.S. military, was like a pretty gnarly thing for me to experience. And my family was not that stoked either. But ended up staying there for about 4 years.
What are all your friends at home? If you James, what are you doing? Where are you?
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was crazy. They all thought I was working for the agency, and
the agency being CIA or something,
yeah.
Like full underground.
And we would work with the CIA, but I wasn't working formally with them. But there would be times where
you wouldn't be able to tell us if you really were anyway.
Well, everything's declassified now, but yeah, we just I would go dark for months. Because we weren't allowed to be on Instagram, we weren't allowed to be really on anything that gave away our location. Right, and what we were doing was pretty serious stuff, but it was pretty incredible as well. At the same time, we were actually impacting people's lives, right? And at that time, I have never been so grateful to be an American, right? Like that patriot in me. Like, I was so stoked to be an American and seeing what we were able to do, and then I thrived in this environment. So I ended up doing counter-violence extremism or counterterrorism project management for the U.S. government for 10 years. And then, so I went from Pakistan, Afghanistan, then I was in Iraq, then I was in northern Nigeria, then I was in Ethiopia and Somalia, I was in the Philippines. We were tracking some movement coming, the Islamic radicalization movement coming through the south. And then Indonesia. Obviously, Indonesia is one of the biggest Muslim countries in the world and was having issues around radicalization. And so we were tracking that. So brought me to some incredible places. I've surfed gnarly places. Nigeria is an awesome surf spot, one of my favorites. And then I skied and snowboarded in the Swat Valley in Pakistan, and then Almaty in Kazakhstan. So the adventure was there. But just a little bit different than
full on.
Yeah.
What would you do? So it's full on for those 6 months and 2 months off. What are you doing during those 2 months? Is that when you're going to find some surf? Are you getting out of country?
Yeah. So during that time, the government or DAI would help me, relocate for a little bit. I would, go to Berlin or go to Stockholm or to go to Bali or, Salgao, Cloud9 in the Philippines and just hang out and decompress and kind of, recharge.
I would imagine you need that after that type of full in-country experience.
Yeah. I mean, I had the gnarly neck, beard, the whole thing. I was just like fully immersed in that, in the field culture, it was pretty incredible. Yeah. Wow.
Well, thank you for that service.
Oh yeah,
of
course.
That's super important. And you think of, again, USAID or USAID has been in the news a lot because of what's the current administration has done. But it's done a lot of good for a very long time.
A lot of good. And that's, we don't need to get all political here, but that was the biggest disappointment, I think. And just seeing all my friends get laid off, right? Like,
my nephew was one of them.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's another thing. It's just like, I guess, everywhere you need to trim the fat in terms of spending and other things. But unless you've seen what I've seen and done what I've done through USAID, through the Department of Defense, there's real impact. And, people like me are making real changes for people that need it the most. So, after that, I felt grateful that I was no longer a part of that. But then, seeing all my colleagues and friends, unemployed.
Yeah,
It's pretty incredible.
Tough to watch.
Yeah.
What was clearly you're not still doing that work,
No.
at least not
No.
that we're aware of.
No.
What was the pivot? We're at one. We know what you're doing now. We're going to get right to it. But
Yeah.
two questions. One, what made you decide to step out of that? And then what did you learn during that led you to Stoked Plastics and going down the path of Opolis?
Yeah, at some point, I talked about that patriotism and the feeling proud to be an American and doing these projects and being in these places. But after a while, I started to feel like a cog in a very big machine, and I no longer felt like I was actually making a difference in these places. I thought, we might have been there for strategic purposes rather than the purpose that I'd hoped us to be there for. And then friends started dying, right? And then the adventure turned more into, oh my God, like, what did I get myself into? So it got scary. I think my family was over it. And at some point, Mark, I was lonely. I was in the field all the time. I was traveling all the time. I couldn't really date. Whoever I dated, it wouldn't last long because it's a very complicated way to be with someone, right?
And you were in harm's way.
I was in harm's way most of the time.
And that's when you mentioned you had friends.
Yeah.
That was because of the work you were doing.
100%.
Wow.
And so from that point when I started in Bangladesh at 24, 25, I'm then 32, and I'm like, wow, things are just getting crazier, right? And that's not really what I signed up for, So that's kind of like what made me started thinking about other opportunities. But it wasn't really until I made the connection between plastic and the corruption that I was seeing that really made me think about plastic.
So
yeah,
connect the dots for us there. Like,
yeah.
what does that look like? Because I think this is very eye-opening. For a lot of us, we know that the world has an incredible pollution problem, an incredible plastics problem.
Yeah.
It may be one of the most significant ones, but you put a whole different tilt on that most of us here in the U.S. and Western countries, where we either have the resources, the processes, or the ability to move it elsewhere.
Right.
You're in the places that received it.
Exactly.
Talk through what you experienced and connect those dots for us.
Yeah. So this is something that I had the honor of doing a TED Talk or a TEDx talk 2 weeks ago.
I didn't know. Good for you. Congratulations.
And the topic was the connection between violence and plastic. And so what I think the world of climate information is missing is the direct connection to people, right? Because we're always talking about how the environment or the planet is experiencing the pollution, right? But we're never really talking about the people that it's directly impacting, because climate or pollution is a man-made thing, right? So we need to go directly to the source of what is actually impacting the planet, and that's people, right? And so when we were overseas and working for these CVE projects, we started to see a new trend in how radicalization groups were recruiting people. And then this is ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab. And these groups are very intelligent. They know how to recruit people, And what we were noticing is that landfill communities, so like literally people that were setting up homes and shelters in landfills, were getting targeted by these groups.
Real quickly, for people that haven't seen any of this, I've seen a little bit, but why there? Why are people setting up homes, for lack of a better term, in these landfills areas?
Yeah, because most of them are most of them are marginalized groups, and some of them in these large Muslim countries are Christians, Hindus. A lot of people that aren't really allowed to participate in mainstream society there. But the only real income that they get is from picking trash, and so they set up their homes where they're working, and they're working in the landfills, right? And because of where the state of pollution, there's just more and more communities living in these landfills than there has ever been, right? And so you approach a community where there's no economic viability with cash, and with the promise to take care of their families financially for the rest of their life, that's a pretty big carrot to dangle in front of these people that have nothing, right?
I mean, truly nothing.
Nothing, right? And so they're getting otherwise what peaceful people to join very violent ideas or concepts, right? And so we really started to notice this trend in how we were tracing and how the most vulnerable groups were getting recruited. And so that's really where the light bulb came off for me. I was like, oh my God, like not only is plastic fucking up the environment that I love to play in and participate in and support, but it's putting people in danger now. Like, okay, microplastics is putting us all in danger, but these people are getting into some gnarly situations because of it, right? And I was like, okay, what can I do, James Merrill, personally, while I'm here as a U.S. government official? How can I help these people with this immediate problem? So how can I stop this one person from taking a bribe like that day, right? So you and I grew up recycling, collecting water bottles, right, for extra cash. I was like, you know what? Maybe there's a way to introduce this concept of commoditization of trash and plastic to these groups where they can make a little cash so that they're saying no to these opportunities of violence. And so I started working with local NGOs or advocacy groups to help me manage the community and the transfer of cash, right? I just don't want to go to a random person and pay them. I want it to be managed, right? And so we started little by little, like, you know, these groups in Pakistan and Indonesia and Kenya. We started working with these groups to help these communities, and then we're like, oh, we're starting to see a change here. Oh. We're seeing not only people saying no to the bribes, but they're cleaning up their environment. They're making some cash. They're creating more awareness around what it means to recycle, what it means to, like, you know, throw your plastic in the right receptacle bin, you know? And so that was like a pivotal turning point for me. And it was at that point that I said, okay, I found my purpose. I have found my why. So how can I help? How can I do this at a larger scale, right? And so I was like, okay, if I'm gonna understand this process more, I got to learn about plastic. So I moved to Indonesia, Jakarta. I learned about plastic supply chains. I started learning about the chemistry of plastic until I started to think about how I could intertwine my passion for the outdoors, for gear, and what I was doing with the plastic in these communities. And so I started to kind of research products that were calling themselves fully sustainable, hard product goods that were fully sustainable, and learning more about what that actually meant. And so we started reverse engineering some of these products that said they were fully sustainable, and we were finding that only 3 to 5% of recycled content was being used in a fully recyclable or sustainable thing. And I was
What's the term you use for that? Is that greenwashing?
It's just greenwashing.
Is that what it is,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Which is the belief or the marketing of a good as fully recyclable or heavily influenced by it when it's really not.
It's right. And there's no really checks and balances around that. So a lot of people can just say it's fully recyclable and get away with it. But I was like, well, 3 to 5% seems really low. I was like, it seems really low. So I ended up meeting our chief scientist officer, Ashish, and he's a tenured professor at the University of Southern Maine. And he's a polycarbonate engineer and material scientist. He's incredible. So I had this thesis. I was like, Ashish, can you help me solve this problem to increase the amount of recycled content we can put in hard performance gear? And that's essentially how it all started.
Rad.
Yeah.
Rad.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's probably important because we were just talking about greenwashing and talking about the genesis of Stoked plastics.
Yeah.
Should we hit on real quick? I'm always dumbfounded, and I've had other people in that chair that are very, very attuned to the environmental issues and the statistics. But how many plastic water bottles are produced a year? Do you know?
Yeah, what did I say?
500 billion?
Yeah, 500 billion, which is around 32,000 football fields a year. of plastic water bottles, and that's just plastic water bottles.
Yeah, think about
everything else, right?
You know what I think about it when I think about all the statistics and I see the photos of places that you've been and where you're pulling resources from.
Yeah.
I think about like, you know, in the U.S. we don't see it, right?
Yep.
There's certain parts of the world you go and you see it.
Yep.
And like if we could superimpose it on the Back Bay, which is this gorgeous area right here in Newport, if it was coming unfiltered, like it would be an incredibly different environment, and it would be very easy, tangible to see the impacts, but we don't see it.
No.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, for sure.
But what you see out there in these places you've been, I can't fathom. But when you hear about 500 billion water bottles, just the water bottles
annually, and it's getting worse, right? Even with all this knowledge of what we know about plastic.
And the total recycling is like sub 10%. Right?
Yeah, it's 7%.
You know, I had a woman in here, say Craig. She goes by the Trash Tramp, and she educates people on just in your community. She's a big paddler. In your community, this is how you go make a difference.
Yeah.
This is how you sort. This is where it goes. She's awesome.
Yeah.
And she was the first one, and then Don Meek with a New Earth Project both use different terminology. But I'm the guy that goes, okay, which bin does this go in? Where does it go in that bin? Is that bin? And like Don goes, it doesn't. That goes in the trash bin.
Yeah,
it's plastic. But that goes. Most of these don't like. And they said, oh, that's wish cycling or hope cycling. I hope this gets recycled. I hope. You know, I put stuff in the blue bin, hoping most of that isn't, or very few. Like
most of it will go
it's
to landfill.
Really hard. So when you hear 7 to 9%, I think are the statistics or the numbers I've heard. I think I heard this one from you in one of the quotes. By 2050. Do you know where I'm going?
Yeah.
What is it?
There'll be more plastic in their oceans than marine life, right? Isn't that the saddest thing in the world?
It's the saddest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And the flip of all this is I always say, like, it's on my kids and the younger generation like you to figure this out. We've fucked it.
Yeah.
Someone's going to have to fix it, and it's going to have to be aggressive.
Right.
But that's really what you're doing with Stoked Plastics is one part of taking action to sustain and improve and try to flip some of what we've created. Right.
Exactly.
Thank you for that.
Oh, of course. But it's coming to a point where, you know, I'm of the older generation now, and a lot of the pressure is with the younger folks. But at least right now, I'm hoping that, especially like the guys who are on the panel with me, you know, David from Bureo and Chase from STEMS and Gary from Sungay Watch. Hopefully we're providing the tools and a path where people can, you know, basically innovate and capitalize on that progress and make it even better and more efficient. Right.
Those 3 organizations were all equally amazing to learn what they're doing.
Yeah, incredibly.
And Sungay Watch is in
Bali.
And what they're doing in those rivers that are just.
I
mean, you think about, like, my first time going to surf trip in Indo was probably 25 years ago, and it was pretty clean and pretty gorgeous. And you can go, you're going to see some trash and cuda in certain areas. But what you're seeing now,
just unprecedented.
Well,
and then you know Gary just had Slater. You know, Kelly Slater was just with him out there because he caught the attention of Slater. They're going viral with
who? Sungay Watch.
Sungay Watch. Yeah.
Sungay means river
in Bali. Balinese, and they're kind of going viral, and you know, I love that because they're bringing attention to the problem, right? And I think you heard a little bit of my rant on the panel that day, Mark, about, you know, some of the progress we've made as a materials company of as extracting and collecting and upcycling plastic is now people are thinking that these are just trends, right? Manufacturers or brands. And everybody's going towards the route of non-plastic things, right? They want to make everything out of bio-based, which is great. And that's where we need to be. But we still need to figure out what to do with all this plastic in the world, right? And so I feel like both of these technologies need to work together and complement each other instead of just saying one is better than the other at this point. And so that's kind of like the roadblock that we've been running into. We've gone through phases of piloting with some of the biggest outdoor brands in the world right now, and now we had all this progress, and they're like, well, we're looking now more at bio-based integration. I was like, that's fine, and you should do that. But we also have a solution right now to deal with the current issue, right? So that's been a little bit of the frustrating part, but for the most part, you know, that's why it's great to be on shows like this with you to tell, you know, the consumers that there's a major problem and there's a solution right now, and we're doing it. And so hopefully the brands and the companies we're working with will listen to the consumers in terms of what can be, done now.
Yeah, for sure. And what's interesting is, I know I've said his name a couple times, but I'm always super inspired by him. Don Meek had shared with me, because it's easy to get lost in the frustration with plastic, right? But he clarified. He goes, Mark, plastic has changed the world for the good in so many ways. Just go to the hospital, look at your car. Like but there's a tipping point, and we haven't learned how to regulate, improve, change, make it better, and extract. Right. And I know there's lots of little pieces all over the world focusing on it. But until there's a global focus to say, hey, we have to start pulling, and whether it be turning water bottles into super high performance killer durable goods, or into clothing, or into into asphalt, or whatever it may be. Different ways to use it. Or I guess the key is reuse it. Reuse it.
100%.
Right? Okay, so you had given a really cool high level early on about Stoked Plastics, and you just shared a little bit more about the science. Talk a little bit more about the difference between Stoked Plastic and regular plastic, and why it is such a potentially pivotal tool for a lot of these big brands, and why these big brands are starting to investigate it with you.
Right. So regular plastic, or plastic that you would find in the environment that hasn't been adapted or hasn't had our science applied to it, when you're upcycling that plastic bottle into a performance-based hard good, so something that goes through the injection molding process, because it's been sitting in the environment, the molecular makeup of that plastic is being degraded, right, from the UV light and just the environment itself. And so when you're reprocessing or upcycling that plastic, it's really brittle and it's really weak. So to use that and put it back into a product that requires performance standards, it's not going to meet them. And I remember a couple of our phases of our first implementation of our product, with using just straight up rPET we were finding, it would just crumble in your hands. So we knew we needed to figure out a way to rebuild that molecular integrity, right? And so that's really what the science is behind what we've developed. It's essentially what they call, Mark, an extender, or a resin. And what that is, it's a glue that basically allows us to adhere or fuse 25% new plastic with 75% recycled plastic, and make it into its own like DNA makeup. And so that's the biggest difference between what we're providing and what is currently on the market right now, is that this plastic that's currently on the market can only meet certain criteria of performance at a certain level. And so that's why a lot of people are using 100% rPET in fabric, because it doesn't require performance, right? It can be delicate, it can be soft, right? But when you're talking about a hard performance good, you need it to be light, durable.
And that's where Stoked Plastics compound comes in.
That's where.
So it's rPET plus.
rPET plus, right?
And exactly. You end up. So did you say it's 75%?
Yeah, we're at a point where we can get 75% of recycled content in that one pellet, right? Which is incredible, right? And depending on the use case of the end product, we can probably increase that as well. Wow. So we're working anywhere between a 25% to a 75-85% recycled content thing, depending on what the product we're talking about.
Got it. And so your Stoked Plastics, I'm guessing, is then competing not with rPET, but it's competing with virgin new plastics. Yeah. Straight petroleum. Performance-wise, equitable?
Equitable. Yeah. It's that's our whole thing. Our new tagline for Stoked Plastic is no new plastic, right? Because there's enough plastic in the world right now where you don't need to be making it anymore. Let's just use the plastic that's in the environment, and then that's what we're making things out of. And my investors probably would hate for me to say this, but I'm essentially trying to put myself out of business, where we're using all the plastic in the world until there's nothing left to be used.
I think you've got a fairly big runway.
Yeah, I think we're good, at least in my lifetime. Yeah.
And so, okay, so if performance is equitable, and production accessibility. If a brand wants it, you can provide it.
Yep.
The next big one that a brand's always going to ask you about, okay, if you can prove the performance, what's the cost
What's the
differential?
cost? Yeah.
What do you guys see?
So in terms of, so obviously virgin plastic is cheaper. That's why people use it, right? But if you're comparing what's currently available on the market for rPET with our rPET or Stoked plastic, it's very comparable. And so it is a premium though. It's a premium when you compare it to virgin plastic, right? So, we're working with brands though where they can build that premium into their overall price of that product, and their margins are still fairly good because we are working with some of the biggest brands in the world that are known to be a little bit more on the expensive side. So, and I think the customers that are buying that product have a more appreciation though for it, and are willing to pay the premium, knowing that they're doing something good. But most importantly, Mark, that the thing performs, right? Because we're not going to buy something that doesn't perform, right?
For sure.
That's just bad business.
Yeah.
With
Opolis being in a really competitive space, and initially you said it was really a test case, right? Or proof of concept.
Yeah.
You're still, even though I think you've now effectively proven the concept, right?
Yeah.
You're still keeping Opolis going?
Yeah, we're still keeping Opolis going, and that's getting tougher and tougher because Opolis is continuing to grow, and so is Stoked, right? So having to be the CEO and founder of both companies is just, it's very time consuming, and I'm the first one to admit I'm still learning about the eyewear industry, and I've never had experience in it. So it's been a trial and error every year. And when you're competing against Smith and Oakley, the purses on these are endless, right? And so competing in a space that essentially is monopolized by them is very difficult. And so at first we thought we were going to compete with them. We had some investment. We're like, let's do the ad spend thing. Let's get this all over Meta and really pump this out. At the end of the day, we couldn't compete, at all. And I think the mistake that I made, Mark, is that in the early years, I was so devoted to the mission of the product. I'm like, okay, the way that we're different is because of the technology and what we're doing to help the world, right? So that's something that I just push. And people do care about it, but it's not creating a massive buying behavior, right? And so that's a big lesson that I learned. And so we need to make sure that first the product works, right? It's performing. Second, it's cool, right? And then third, it's doing something good for the world, right? There's a philanthropic aspect of the company. So it has been like this interesting kind of lessons learned for me, and starting to understand consumer, especially here in the U.S., of what really what is going to get that person to buy it, but then what is going to get that person to care about it, right?
I think you nailed it, and I think that learning is really clear. I mean, we can see that in my stores where there's a lot of products that I may not believe in 100%, but we always say the customers tell us with their pocketbooks which one they want. And if you put 100%. Item A and item B next to each other, there are going to be certain criteria that make them pick one or the other.
Right.
And I think ultimately, if I don't look good in a pair of glasses, I don't care how cool they are, the price point, if I don't look good in them, I'm not, or they don't perform, then I'm not going to buy them, regardless of all the other elements. So I think you're right. Like, you have to recognize that most people aren't going to buy something because it's better unless it's better for them.
100%.
Right?
Yeah, 100%.
However, I think that same person may go, if I can buy a recycled helmet or or whatever it is, or something that is much more sustainable, or it's, purpose driven. Yeah. There's so many things that do fit that better. I don't know. We could probably go yes, no. There's so many options there. But it just, I almost take it back to, we talked a little bit offline and a little bit in my intro, like I keep, when I was going down the James Merrill rabbit hole, like the term that kept coming up is ballsy. Yeah. And I didn't know if it was ignorance is bliss. I didn't know if it was like, you're like just all guns blazing, or if it just turned out that way because, as you said, you didn't grow up, or we said you didn't grow up in the action sports. You end up as a user of them, but not on the manufacturing, marketing, selling side of that coin.
I mean, I think if I grew up here, Mark, and I was immersed in the culture of, I was immersed in the surf culture, but like really in the nuts and bolts of it, I don't know if I would have done it. It's crazy hard. What I was doing for the government was really hard. This is even harder, and so, but I'm one of those people, okay, ignorance is bliss, but I'm one of those people too. If you can't tell me I can't do it, I'm just going to say, fuck it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to show all of you. It's a chip on my shoulder that I've always had growing up, with people that doubt me or underestimate me. And I think, being in Southern California and LA in general is a very competitive place anyway. And so for me, I wanted to prove not only could I make a living doing what I wanted in a very competitive place, but in a very competitive space as well. Right.
Yeah.
And so,
well, and you've been recognized for that. I mean, as you said, you were just on TED.
Yeah.
You just did a TEDx talk.
That's right. Yeah.
And your products on both sides are award winning.
That's right.
I mean, you've been on, as I said, the rabbit hole. Like, there's lots of content out there about. You are a thought leader in this space, and it may be hard, but you are making a difference.
Right.
And one of the questions we'll get to is like the 5 year. Like, where do you think it's going to go? What do you want it to go?
Right.
What does this look like from an industry and from your own businesses?
Yeah.
But you can't gloss over where you've already come.
Yeah, I appreciate
from
that.
where you started it. I mean, from a vision, you're a materials company competing with the biggest material companies in the world, petroleum companies that make plastic.
That's right. Yeah.
And yet you're getting recognized for it. And then you're like, oh, I'm going to go proof of concept. I'm going to go make eyewear that is award winning against some of the biggest brands, some of which Like,
that's
dude,
right. Yeah.
I know it's not easy, but it's pretty rad to see what you've accomplished. And then
Appreciate
again,
that.
I met you because you were on a panel 2 years in a row as a thought leader in the sustainability space.
Right.
Not easy, but again, that really, if you think about the challenges that this country or the world has when it comes to pollution, sustainability, and recycling, we need people that have the chip on their shoulder.
I guess so. Yeah, I suppose. And thank you. And I guess what was great about that panel too, this year was that it was a recap of what we had discussed last year, and it was a great way for us as founders to really reflect, because our heads are so in the sand all the time. We don't even acknowledge all the progress we've made. So I appreciate you saying that, for sure.
Are people like that, like the other folks on the panel, the companies you talked about?
Yeah.
Do you have a peer group? Like, are you engaging with folks like that on a regular basis?
No.
And it would seem like you've got a really good network opportunity, whether you use it or not, to be really engaged with a lot of really big thought leaders on really big topics.
Yeah, that's been harder and harder as we become more busy, just because time is limited, right? But I make sure that I check in with everybody on that panel as much as we possibly can. Gary and I just from Sunge Watch just caught up the other day, and we're going to try to figure out a collaboration. So making sure that we're keeping in touch with these type of folks, the entrepreneurs both in LA and down here in San Diego, is really important for me to stay involved in as well. And I don't know if you saw down the James Merrill rabbit hole too. I was a guest on How I Built This with Guy Raz, right?
Oh my God! When I saw that,
and so
huge congratulations.
And having that opportunity has been incredible as well, and that has opened up a lot of doors, not only from a business standpoint, but access to pretty incredible business leaders and thought leaders in this space and beyond. And so, as you know, Mark, if you're not learning, or if you're not open to learning new things every day, you're gonna be you're shot. So being open to the things that I do know and that I don't know, most importantly, has really been an important strength, I guess, through this process to keep us going.
Dude,
right?
When I saw that you had, and I got to listen to you being interviewed by Guy Raz and then the founder of Cliff Bar. Remind me, what was his name? Do you remember? But and you were on it's like an ancillary pod where they kind of mentor entrepreneurs, business leaders like yourselves, and they bring it was so rad. That must have been pretty cool.
It was pretty cool, and for them to kind of justify the having of the two startups. They're like, here you had the material, you had the innovation, and then you went ahead and made the market essentially for your product was a really good idea. And getting that validation from them and from Guy was a pretty incredible thing. Yeah. Whereas some investors that we've pitched to, that really complicates things for them. They're like, we don't think it's necessary, and we think it's distracting having two companies at the same time. Therefore, you need to pick one or the other. And in my opinion, both are serving each other. And I think it's probably the best asset that we have going forward. Yeah.
So. Listen. So with proximity of peers, do you also employ mentors? Like, do you have good people in your court that you're bouncing stuff off of, or
Sure.
that they're pulling you under their wing, et cetera?
Yeah, I have some incredible board of directors, advisors, and friends, that have helped me a lot, both in the outdoor space, the material space, and just the business space in general. Because, as you know, I was a soccer player and then U.S. government contractor. This is a very different world for me. So, having these people in my life is like so important, to move forward.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I always say proximity is, I've stolen it. Proximity is power. Like who you surround yourself with, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So you got the call up from Guy Raz and how I built this. When it comes to pitching investors or partners, is there like one phone call you're waiting for, or like you're hoping somebody said, like, is there one, or are there a couple out there, like these are the guys, or these are the firms that need to say yes, because it'll be game changing for them, it'll be changing for the world, and it'll be pretty good for Stoked Plastics
Sure.
too.
Yeah. Well, in terms of brands that we would love to partner with, all of them, the Yetis, the Burtons, the North Faces, we'd love to work with them. But Leonardo DiCaprio's foundation, his VC would be pretty incredible. But then to be able to work with Kelly Slater, with John Florence, with these type of guys, to put their stamp of approval on what we're doing and how it benefits not only the culture that they've thrived in, but the world in general, would be, I think, a pretty incredible thing for us at this point. And we're at the periphery with all of those conversations. So it just seems like we're almost to that point where something big could happen, but it's just like we're teetering on it right now.
You just need the right person to say yes.
It's just a tease at this point. But and then one thing that I think we're still at this point where our innovation, I think, is maybe still too new for the country right now. And so we're just trying to keep the lights on long enough where these teetering opportunities can happen and we can start, really making a difference,
So, I mean, this brings us into like the business side of it. Like, and I said it earlier, like it's almost, if you're in a startup or two startups and you're dealing with a technology that, to your point, isn't fully understood or fully embraced yet, you might be so far or too far ahead of the curve. Not too far, just ahead of the curve. It takes time. Like I always say in our business, like we don't want to be on the bleeding edge. Like I can bring in incredible new things, but if people don't know about it, I'm the wrong place to pitch it. It needs to get traction elsewhere, and then I can sell it. I mean, Yeti didn't mean anything at the beginning to us until people knew of it.
100%.
I wonder what things look like when the right person says yes. What's the 5 year? Like if you magic wand, like what does 5 years look like for you, for your companies? What do you think?
Being salaried would be awesome,
Are you still bootstrapping this thing?
Still bootstrapping. I got it basically started from the hazard pay that I made. I funded a lot of the research and development based on it, but then we've been able to get grants to the state of Maine, through the state of California, and then just angel rounds and friends and family. That's basically what it's been up to this point. But 5 years from now, hopefully Opolis is being run by a CEO that has eyewear experience, right? And that we are the most, sustainable, performative eyewear or goggle line on the mountains or the beaches. That would be an incredible thing. And then for Stoked Plastics, to kind of be on a similar trajectory that David and Borreo are on, right? Where
talk about Borreo, just so for people.
So Borreo is basically created a pellet based on extraction of fish nets. that are being pulled out of the ocean, and they've been able to streamline that and incorporate a lot of that material into fibers and hard goods. For Patagonia was their biggest business, and I think their first client.
Wow.
Right. And that just put them on an incredible trajectory. But they've basically paved the road for what I think Stoked Plastics could be for the hard plastic goods or good industry. And
I can't imagine it not happening that way.
Yeah.
How far can Stoked Plastics go? Like, what industry can you support? What kind of goods that I sell in a hardware store, you can find them? Like, where can it go?
I mean, any injection molded product. Wow. That's pretty much every plastic thing, right? Hard plastic thing. If you're looking at the total addressable market for injection molded plastic goods, it's $191 billion.
You just need a sliver.
Just a sliver. That's all. It's just a little sliver, right? But we're talking about we're talking to different categories, which has been nice outside of the outdoor industry. We're looking at robotics. We're looking at toys. We're looking at automotives. We're looking, all over the place. I think I told you on the panel, we're making knife handles now, and we're making lacrosse heads, and it's just, anything plastic, really.
So who is, I think I know the answer. Who is the buyer?
Yeah.
Is the buyer the person that wants to, it probably goes back to the Opolis conversation about, I'm only going to buy something if I look good in it type of thing.
Yeah.
What are you finding from a price point? Are people saying that if this widget costs 10% more, like, is there a tipping point? Like, do you feel that you need to be within a certain range of virgin for it to make sense? And within that range, it's super manageable to grow?
Yeah.
Is that kind of the way you look at it?
Yeah, that's kind of what we're looking at it, right? And obviously economies of scale always helps the price as well,
sure.
right? And I think what is smart that we've done, and I've worked on this with my CEO, Casey, is that we've made basically a presentation or a pitch for every part of that, or every person in that decision process. The marketing person, the CFO, like, we have the numbers, we have the marketing, we have the product. Like, let's make sure that everybody is on board with the trajectory of what this could mean for their company, both from a financial to a marketing to a product, sense. And so that's really helped in terms of convincing people to at least try it, right? And then that's our biggest thing, is like, we're paying for the pellets for you guys to use. It doesn't hurt to try. It doesn't cost you anything, right? And so that's kind of where we left it, and that's usually what gets people over the fence in terms of trying to at least test it. But we are trying to, I think we would rather be working with the manufacturers of plastic things, essentially because they're the ones that are going to dictate or advise their clients on what plastic to use. So we basically want to get manufacturers certified in our process or to buy our materials so that they can introduce to their customer base.
Got it.
Yeah. Instead of us like reaching out to North Face and Yeti, like, and trying to convince them, their manufacturer's already talking to them,
Gotcha.
No.
And the reality is, if this Yeti lid was made from Stoked Plastics, it would look the same, feel the same, talk the same, smell like everything, perform 100% the same.
Just have the better story.
Better story.
Yeah.
Because this lid right here would probably take 2-3 water bottles out of the
ocean or landfill.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, for sure.
And for clarity, all of the water bottles that you guys use in Stoked Plastics are coming out of landfill or ocean?
So we call it ocean bound, ocean found. And ocean found obviously is exactly what it means, but bound means that it's water bottles that I think are 30 miles away from potentially being ocean found. And so that's one thing that we do clarify as well. We do a mix of ocean found, ocean bound.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Crazy.
Yeah.
It's so rad. Like, we need it. Like, there's not a single person listening that doesn't go, nobody's going, oh, no, this is dumb.
Yeah.
Like, everybody knows it. Yeah. It's just a matter of getting the manufacturers to pivot and go, we're going to, we're going to do it.
100%. Yeah. And that's the long game, right? And because these businesses typically have long sales cycles too, right? When you're talking about performative goods, they have their there's standards that these things have to go through, right? If they're going to be on tactical gear, they need to make sure that it performs. And what that means, it needs to be in the mountains, it needs to be in the ocean, it needs to be like beat up, right? They need to make sure that this is going to work. So that's what we're playing against as well. So that's especially for investors, they want an immediate return, right? They don't need an ROI once that money's invested. But for us, it's a couple years to see that thing kind of materialize, because if we're working with a big company that's going to launch a new product, that product's going to come out in 2007 or 27, right? So that's a couple of years from actually happening. So as I said on the panel too, we've been having more success now working with small to medium-sized businesses, where that approval process is less rigorous and more timely, and so we've seen a lot more progress with that.
Good. Yeah. Well, I mean, I would imagine the more recognition goes a long way. Yeah. So the more awards, the more TED Talks, the more Guy Raz interviews.
The more Mark interviews. The
more exposure and recognition and accolades that you get, the closer you get
100%
to the Florence's saying yes, or the Yeti's calling, or whatever, right?
That's right.
So it seems like, because you've got that momentum.
Right.
At the same time, I got to ask, we said it earlier a little bit, startups, like nonprofits, you always be asking. You always got to be asking, right? Yeah. How has that been for you? Always being, you got to take a lot of shots to the chin, right?
Yeah, I hate it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's your baby, right? And you're getting, people are criticizing, people are saying no, people are telling you it's never going to work. People think it's an idiotic idea. It is taking a lot of shots to the chest, but as you know, Mark, too, it's a numbers game. You just need to be making sure that you're never taking it personally, and you're always getting up and dusting yourself off again and asking again, right? And that's been I think I've had 3 ego deaths even before meeting with you this morning, right? I was on a call and being told no again, right? But it's just part of the process, and I did take it personally for a while, but now I'm almost using it as a strength now, being able to just pick myself up and ask again. But as a founder, you need to always be asking for money. And that's been like a full-time job for me.
It is, for sure.
And so that's why I'm grateful that I have my other teammates on board, because it would be impossible to be raising money and to do the day-to-day stuff
of 2 startups.
Of 2 startups,
right.
Exactly. So
yes. So at the same time, right? There's not a founder out there of some of the biggest companies in the world that weren't given ego death after ego death.
That's
told
right.
no 1,000 times. You can read all the books about everybody, or the pro athletes that were told they'll never make it.
Yeah.
However, you got to have big shoulders
Sure.
and thick skin.
Yeah.
Did your time overseas doing the heavy duty work that you were doing prepare you for this in any way? Like, are the skills that you developed in harm's way played into your ability to, whether it be take it on the chin with investors or pitches, or like, do those skills cross over? Yeah,
I think the adrenaline that comes from both, right? And the complexity that you're faced with on a day-to-day basis. We were always in the field, right? When we were working for the U.S. government, we're always pivoting, right? And I think that's a big thing that happens in the startup world. And new business world, is you're pivoting on a constant basis, not just even owning your own business. It's just, you're always pivoting, right? And letting go of the things you can't control, right? But hunkering down on the things you can, and just really capitalizing on that. And I think that's something that, working with the military and the U.S. government and being in these complex environments and being a good team member, right, really kind of showed me how to be a leader. And I think that's really kind of what's pushed me through these really high and low moments, is having that understanding, and that I've seen worse. I've seen the worst of the worst. And a bad day at Opolis and Stoked Plastics is not a bad day compared to a lot of the other stuff that I've seen and what other people have to go through. So feeling a little grateful for that. Yeah.
Well, I've got to guess that at the same time, if you've ever dealt with somebody that's maybe not the most let's. I would have to think in your head from time to time with certain individuals when they're saying no or whatever. You're like, motherfucker, let's go. You want to go spend 2 years in Bangladesh? Let's talk. Let's talk then.
Exactly.
Right? I can only imagine.
Well, it's just like, the venture capitalists too. And then, most of them have never really been a founder themselves. They're just coming from the financial or banking, industry. And then hearing them talk about, things being tough or, your idea not working, or trying to get advice from these folks that have no understanding or comprehension of not being able to pay rent or, grinding through just some serious stuff. Sometimes it's very, you gotta just bite your tongue.
Yeah.
Like, oh, God.
My context is a little different, but I have similar people. Like, you come do it.
Yeah, exactly.
You come give us a try, and then we can talk.
Criticizing is easy. Is the easy part.
For sure.
Actually doing it is the hard part.
For sure. Yeah. Let me ask you, through all that, you started this with optimism to change the world or help the world.
Yeah.
Going all the way back to your college degree.
Yeah.
Do you still have the level of optimism, or do you get rattled, or do you still pretty optimistic?
I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic because through these type of conversations and interactions that I have with people, people are just really, when you give someone hope because there's a real way of impacting real change, it's something that you can't explain. It's like you're giving someone a superpower, right? And I think the more conversations you have, the more practicality that you have with the connection between the innovation and the reality of what that innovation could bring, I think it's something that really inspires. And that's where the hope comes from. And I think I need to step out of my little silo every now and then to get reminded and interact with people to actually explain why this is a real opportunity and how this could really impact their lives. Because once people are given the tools for change, people use them. But I think we're just so bogged down on this climate despair where we feel like it's hopeless. Because that's all we ever see on the news too, right? And so being a voice for change and hope gives me hope. And that's when, when I get cynical, Mark, like things are really bad, I have to remind myself of, well, we have a solution. Let's start sharing that solution. So that's kind of what I think about. Yeah.
Rad. And listen, for those of us that struggle, we talked earlier, I've got a marine science degree.
Yeah.
I'm an environmentalist at heart.
Yeah.
But I'm a capitalist retailer that sells a lot of stuff that is not helping the environment. And we do it really well. We do that well. And there's a role for that. We're helping people in a very different way. But
that's right.
It pains me not being able to make a real impact on the environment and help it. We can, but we need people like you. Well, we need brains and commitment and passion to go make a difference to the world to remove billions of pounds of plastic.
Well, Mark, it's our responsibility as materials and manufacturers to give you the products for your store to the folks that actually are helping, right? So it's a circular process, right? We need to give you those products that actually help that change because you're part of the solution, a big part of the solution. We need buyers like you. We need stores like you that are going to stock and care about the products that we're producing for the customers that are coming to your store. Yeah. Right? That's what really needs to happen.
Well, I mean, and that brings back the conversation that comes up here every time we talk about the environment and these challenges and sustainability is some of those big players that you're competing directly against in the virgin plastics. Yeah. Others would say, or people would say that they're responsible. Why don't they get to play in? They're providing, they're building. They're not doing anything to reclaim, reuse, recycle, upcycle. They're just building and getting it out and it 100%. Ends up in our oceans. Yeah. There's some accountability there. There should be. There isn't. Yeah. There should be, and hopefully someday there will be, or they start using Stoked plastics to make a difference.
Yeah. Well, as we always say, consumers have power, right? Because we have purchasing power. So the more that we have these conversations, the more that people are getting this message out in forums and inspires, I think customers to actually start, talking to these brands, start talking to these manufacturers of what they expect their things to be made out of, right? So that's what we can only hope for at this point, because, these other big brands and companies, they have the resources to make the right decisions when it comes to manufacturing.
For sure.
At the end of the day, cash is king and margins are margins, right?
Totally.
So,
well, listen, I'll tell you right now, some of the decisions that we can make, like
Yeah.
if Yeti came to me and said, listen,
Yeah.
you can have that exact same coffee mug
Yeah.
with the same lid,
yeah,
or for $1 more, you can get the same coffee mug with the lid made out of Stoked plastics
Yeah.
that's 75% recycled.
Yeah, yeah,
I would only bring in that one, and
Yeah.
I'd charge $1 more, and that
Right.
would be all that, like, that's where retailers can make a choice. I can put two side by side, or I can say, I take one choice right off the table.
yeah,
Right? And so
Yeah, you're right.
we want to be in a position to make a better, wiser choice that's
Yeah.
better for the economy, right? And it's going to take manufacturers to adopt.
yeah, for sure.
But learning more about what you provide and what
Yeah.
it does, and
Yeah.
getting the momentum
Yeah.
or following the momentum,
Yeah.
that's what it takes. And it sounds like you're in the middle of that, even though it sounds like quite a fight.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a fight, but it's getting. I guess it's getting easier. People are becoming more well informed, right? And as I said, I grew up in the Northeast, and we're losing our winters, right? The winters are getting shorter, and the Gulf of Maine was a great example of how warm the waters are getting now. Yeah. And then even in Southern California, we're going through these massive floods and droughts and whatnot too. It's directly impacting us now, and I think people are like more aware, especially in Palisades with the fires that happen there. I mean, climate is on top of brain for people right now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's any question. Again, we're in a position to make changes. If you're in Bangladesh or
Yeah.
some of these other areas, they're not in a position to make change. They're just trying to live, and
They're just trying to survive.
they're just trying to survive. So it's
Yeah.
upon the Western
Yeah.
capital, or capital intensive world that can handle it and can be responsible and can make changes to pursue it. But
Exactly.
it takes a lot of layers
Sure.
to get there, right?
Yeah,
But
100%.
again, it is, and that's why we're here. Like, I was so inspired by you and the panel and that whole
thanks, man.
day, the
Yeah.
whole day at the Coast Summit
I
with
know, so
everything they've assembled, and
Yeah.
people like Wes Carter with
Yep.
Atlantic
And
Plastic,
yeah.
Atlantic Packaging,
Yeah.
and their commitment to trying to rethink how we look at packaging. Because look at the amount of stuff that's coming in every day to our homes from Amazon and everybody else.
know.
Like,
I know.
we've got to think differently and
That's
figure
right.
out how to do it better.
That's right. Yeah.
So we need more people like you.
Appreciate that, Mark. Yeah.
Listen,
Yeah.
I want to say thank you for what you did for USAID and
Yeah.
taking your
Yeah, thank you.
your desire to make a difference
Yeah.
to the world,
Yeah.
and then bringing it back and trying to do it again, or doing it
Yeah.
in a very different way, and
Sure.
again taking a lot of licks along the way, it sounds
okay.
like, again.
Yeah, yeah.
But what you've done and how you're doing it is super rad, and I have every confidence that you're gonna, that like, people listen, Stoked Plastics, you're gonna hear it, or you're gonna be using it and you don't even hear it.
That's right.
That's really the goal, right? You just
Yeah.
want it embedded in
That's
everyday
really-
life all the time.
That's
It
when you
doesn't
know you've made it.
It doesn't
Yeah.
need to have a name on it.
That's right.
Right? That's the key.
100%.
It wants to be a core part of
Yeah.
our environment.
That's right.
I can't wait till Stoked Plastic makes up a significant portion of what we have in our stores. I will feel very
I can't
good
wait
about
for
it.
that to happen.
Well, if there's a way that I can help,
Yeah.
or anybody else, if somebody wants to find out more about
Yeah.
you and go down the James Merrill
Yeah.
rabbit hole like
Yeah.
I did, where
Yeah,
can
yeah.
they find you? Because there's a lot out there.
Yeah, there's a lot. I'm pretty active on my LinkedIn account. You can find me there, but stokedplastics.com, opolisoptics.com. Like I said, we're a small business, so any emails that come in that way, I'm usually the one reading them. So you can definitely find me there, and I'm pretty responsive. So,
Got it.
Yeah.
James, if people want to make a difference
Yeah.
today,
Yeah.
just in their daily life,
Yeah.
any recommendation that they can just go, the one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. Is there anything they can do?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I mean, I try to compost every day I can, but stop using single-use plastic bags, right? Think about just bringing in your Yeti or canteen in just everywhere you go. Stop buying plastic bottles, right? I think it's just these little habits, because you know what you find, if you tell people to change, that will never happen. You have to be that inspiration to change. So I think these patterns of just existing in a very sustainable and thoughtful way is very inspiring. So I think the more people see these type of little things happening on a day-to-day basis, I think is a really important way to inspire change and to be change. So I mean, it's just the little, because like after the panel, people will come up to me and apologize for buying plastic water bottles for water. I'm like, it's okay. Plastic is great in a lot of ways. It brought plastic water to people that needed it the most in a lot of emergencies. But if there's a way that you can make a change that doesn't kind of impact you in a very complex or big interruption in your life, I think you should just think about what that could be and what could that mean.
Yeah. Good advice.
Yeah.
Last question.
Yeah.
You still getting in the water a lot?
Still getting in the water a lot. I wish I was getting in more, but last month I was in El Salvador, El Zonto, and surfing my brains out. But yeah, I'm a Venice Breaks local there now, surfing as much as I can, and then actually trying to come down south here a little bit more because the waves are a little bit better.
Well, give us a call anytime.
Well, feel good, man.
Right on. James Merrill, Opolis, Optics, and Stoked Plastics. Thank you for what you're doing. Rad story. Thank you for sharing it. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me,
All right,
brother.
buddy. Thank you.
Man.